私のどういうところが好
好きじゃないところははっきりしてるよ。くそ。
Hey, Taku here. This channel I'm starting will be dedicated to sharing things in animes that gave it its shine and appealed to me. And along the way, I'll be pointing out some intricate details, explaining convoluted, confusing segments of shows, and generally just things you might have missed on your first couple watch-throughs. For these reasons though, this series is going to be filled to the brim with spoilers. These videos are basically for 1. People who've already finished the show and are looking for some rewatch value or just trying to clear up some bits of confusion. 2. People who plan on watching the show but need a little bit more spoiler-based motivations. And 3. People who know that they'll never watch the show and are just passing through to see what's up. And 4. People who just don't give a shit and are just here for anime content. Without further ado, let's get to it. I'll be starting this appeal series off with one of my favorite animes, the Monogatari series. There's a ton about this anime that appeals to me. Regardless if it's from a common trope, a storytelling and narrative, or a character relations and depths and developments perspective, this anime has done a great job with it. For people who haven't watched the show, I would probably introduce it as this. If Flying Witch is the model relaxation, chill, daily life, no conflict anime, and One Piece the ideal shonen, work hard, and believe for better result kind of anime, then the Monogatari series is the exact opposite of these. The Monogatari series isn't filled with action. Characters don't get physically stronger by believing, nor is it relaxing or representing of someone's daily life. However, it is still extremely relatable nonetheless because the show simply externalizes internal problems and conflicts that we all have. On the surface, the show is basically about a high school boy dealing with supernatural phenomenon surrounding him and his friends. However, in this show, the monsters they deal with aren't created by nature or by plot, but rather by human emotions. So basically every time they dealt with the monster, Araragi is just acting as a therapist to help his friends figure out their problems, whether it be PTSD, jealousy, family problems, love problems, etc. etc. The show has a surface idea, but also 2 main goals or themes. The surface idea being oddities and monsters are what humans make them out to be. Things become so because humans witness them as so. In other words, mini roadside shrines are what people make them out to be. If there is a god enshrined inside and worshipped as so, there would be a god by the roadside. People who believe in ghosts or are longing to see them are much more likely to see them, whether they're really there or not. Things of that manner. This is the setting that the story builds upon. However, if I were to introduce this show to a friend, I wouldn't bring up too much about the setting of the supernatural. Rather, I'll tell them what the show is about based on its 2 themes. Learning about yourself, learn to love yourself and accept yourself for who you are, and people can't save each other from their problems. You're the only one who can save yourself. This one's a catchphrase from one of the characters since the very beginning of the show, and you probably won't reflect on it or see it physically until the very last episode of the finale season. You know, if there were tiers of difficulties amongst watching anime, this show would be amongst one of the top tiers. No, I'm not saying, to be honest, you need a pretty high IQ to understand the anime. It just takes more effort. A couple more rewatches and digging to make sense of everything and to notice the intricacies that the director and the author of the original books put into the show. And let's admit it, it's a book written in another language. If you want to understand how everything works, being willing to learn some Japanese or at least digging for the Japanese translation of particular lines would explain a bunch too. But yeah, you don't need any of these to enjoy the show. When the story picks up, it's just as captivating as any other animes, if not more. However, this one specifically just has more treasure there for you to dig. Well, if you got the time. If not, this is why I'm here at your service as a professional digger. One of the standards I use to judge harem shows, or any shows for that matter, is whether or not it passes the Bechdel test, or my own slight variation of it. To pass the test, the show has to have at least 2 named females in the cast who talk to each other about something important, other than about the man they're both blindly in love with. For me, I make the standards a little bit even higher by failing shows that have side character interactions, but only when the protagonist is present, or when not, just about some random shallow topic. Yes, that's a variation I applied. Instead of just female characters, I applied this test with side characters. This test is normally used to measure female equality in terms of importance in media, but I use it to measure the importance of side characters and how much they can contribute to the show. If you're like me, a gamer and loner who actually liked all the SAO shows, using this test you can understand why the hate for the show is so real. The SAO series is about Kirito. It's all about Kirito, and it obviously fails the Bechdel test V. But for that reason, that's why my favorite arc is the Mother's Rosario arc, because it wasn't about Kirito. It passes the test and it was emotional as hell. It had Asuna, debatably a side character in the Kirito Fest, interact with other side characters, and the meaningful interaction actually changes her and develops her further as a character. Oh, and she also gets a badass skill that she can use to kick Kirito's ass at any time. Back to the Monogatari series. Now, a lot of people watching the Monogatari series drop it after the first season, Bake Monogatari, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because Bake fails the Bechdel test V horribly as there was no story building or much character relationship development. Every arc was just an introduction to the characters you'll see in the series with a minimal amount of character change and development. At the very beginning, every character starts off as a certain trope, and in the end, it's still kind of the same trope, but some characters do change, slightly, except the Nautical Snake arc of episode 9 and 10, which is only famous for its opening. You've probably noticed that anytime I talked about anything related to nautical, it's not about anything from Nautical Snake, because Nautical Snake told audiences more about Araragi Koyomi than about Sengoku Nautical. It was simply a setup, plot-wise, for the Nautical Medusa arc in second season, which in turn brought Sengoku Nautical to be the character in the entire series that changed the most drastically. Bakemonogatari is nothing special. It has short arcs and it fails the Bechdel test V. And when I first watched it, I dropped it multiple times, and after finishing it, didn't continue on to watching the rest of the series for a couple years. But when I say the Monogatari series is one of my favorite shows of all time, I meant the show itself as an entirety. Starting from second season onwards, when the story actually picks up, it has no trouble passing the Bechdel test V, and it begins to explain the reasons for why characters are how they are, and to break down the standard character trope that they had going on since the very beginning. Along with the details built up from before that point, the show just feels so rich and amazing. With the appeals of it being rich comes the idea of complexity. Well, this is it for this intro video. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what I had to offer, drop a like and subscribe, and next time we'll go more into the idea of complexity and wordplay in the Monogatari series. See you next time. Peace.